Good afternoon. I'm pleased to join Attorney General Harris, Senate President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg, Mr. Ethan Hoff, and my colleagues in both houses to discuss the elements of the Homeowners Bill of Rights that was just passed by the legislature this afternoon. This was a tremendous accomplishment for every Californian who's still facing the prospects of foreclosure. Under the package approved by the legislature today, California's homeowners will have the ability to work with lenders to seek modifications to their loans that will allow them to stay in their homes and avoid foreclosure. But we go further by eliminating some of the worst abuses of financial industry that have helped to cause the worst economic crisis in generations. We outlaw the practice of robo-signing. We require lenders to provide a single point of contact for homeowners seeking to work with the lenders. And we require lenders to stop the practice of dual tracking, where lenders continue to pursue foreclosure even after the homeowner has completed a loan modification application. These are major victories for consumers and impose tough new regulations on banks and lenders to stop the abusive practices that we've seen since the collapse of the housing market. Ultimately, we know that our state's recovery will not take hold until the housing market stabilizes and Californians no longer have to fear the uncertainty of living in houses that are underwater. This is a major victory for the people of California. We still have more work to accomplish, and we will continue working on bringing relief to California homeowners. This package is an excellent down payment on the commitment, and we want to thank my colleagues in the Assembly and the Senate, as well as the Attorney General, for their hard work on approving these improvements and these important reforms for the people of our state. With that, I'd now like to turn it over to my colleague, the Senate President Pro Tem, Darrell Steinberg.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for your leadership and partnership. Thank you to the work of the Assembly conferees, Assembly members Fuhr and Eng. I want to thank my Senate colleagues who all include everybody who put forward such outstanding work here. Senator Noreen Evans, the chair of our conference committee, Senator Ron Calderon, who also did a great job, and Senator Mark Leno, who had authored similar pieces of legislation for years and deserves equal credit here. I have the privilege of introducing the Attorney General, so I really don't want to take much of the limelight here. I just want to say right on. Right on. You know, what's that?
You go, girl.
You go, girl. You better believe it. You know what? We, last 4 or 5 years, we really have been struggling to and working hard with little fanfare to deal with difficult budgets and deficits and serious problems. And you know what? We've come through a lot of it. We still have a lot of work to go. Today represents a signature achievement and a dramatic step forward for tens of thousands of people who are trying really hard in a difficult economy and who simply want to keep their home. And we won't know all of them. We won't know everyone who will benefit, but this is the way it's supposed to work around here and the way it worked today. And none of it would have been possible without an aggressive Attorney General who decided that the first round of settlement talks, when it came to the national mortgage settlement, was not nearly enough, that California deserved and its people needed more. And she set the table here. And we simply have followed through today. And so on behalf of the grateful people of California, it's my pleasure to introduce the Attorney General of the state of California, Kamala Harris.
Thank you. Thank you. So let me start by thanking these leaders who stand on the stage. Each of them, in a very significant way through this process, has been a leader as a voice for very voiceless and vulnerable people. They have been in the midst of the challenging decisions that they have to make around the state budget, been paying an incredible amount of attention to the details of this legislation. They have been meeting with their constituents and all who have an interest or concern or opinion about this package of legislation. I have watched them as they have patiently, for hours on end, listened to the stories. I have watched them as they have spent hours and hours with the members of their hardworking staff, with the members of my office and others, going through the detail in terms of the legal definitions and meaning of specific parts of this bill. I have witnessed an incredible amount of not only cooperation, but collaboration and compromise. Many are often, especially in these difficult economic times, cynical about the role of our legislators. But I am here to say they are an incredible group of people who are incredibly hardworking, have taken their oath very seriously, and as a result of the work that they have done in their leadership, will benefit people who, for the most part, will never know their names and will never have an opportunity to personally thank them. But as the Attorney General and as someone who has been working on this for a long time with them, I want to just take this opportunity publicly to thank each one of you for everything you have done. And in particular, I want to thank Speaker Perez, Senate Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg. I want to thank the conference committee chairs and co-chairs, Mike Eng, Noreen Evans, Member Mike Fewer, Senator Ron Calderon, Assembly Member Nancy Skinner, Wilmer Carter, Mike Davis, and Holly Mitchell. And on the Senate side, of course, Mark Leno, Lonnie Hancock, Fran Pavley, Ellen Corbett, and Mark DeSaulnier. As many of you know, California played a significant role in participating with ultimately 48 other attorneys general in what has been called the National Mortgage Settlement regarding the robo-signing activity that was the subject of investigation. As a result of our role in that settlement discussion, we were able to bring $18 billion back to California to directly benefit California homeowners and neighborhoods and communities. It was our intention at the time that we entered into that settlement that the work would not stop there. It included the work of the Mortgage Fraud Strike Force, which continues to this day to investigate and take seriously misconduct, false claims that have been associated with the origination of loans, with the servicing of loans, and in connection with mortgage-backed securities. Our focus was also to do everything we could to make permanent the reforms that were part of the national settlement. Why? Because we met over a year and a half with homeowners. We met with families in Stockton and in Fresno and Los Banos. We met with folks who told stories that were heart-wrenching. We met with a young father who was recently widowed, raising his 2 children by himself and lost his job, was in the process of a foreclosure and trying to keep his home and simply trying to play by the rules that were outlined for him in terms of modifying his loan payments. And he told us about how, in the process of playing by the rules, without notice, the bank was about to foreclose on his home, and he got notice that his house was being sold on the front steps of City Hall. This legislation was about him. This legislation was about that grandmother that we met with in Fresno, who gave a similar story of pain, of despair, of desperation, and depression. around the fact that the home that had been the family home was about to be lost. And she just wanted a fair process that provided transparency and allowed her, who wanted to play by the rules, some ability to actually keep her home because she wanted to pay to keep it, and do it in a way that gave her a fair set of rules that everyone was playing by. She didn't use the word, but what she wanted was transparency in this system. That is a system everyone should be able to avail themselves of when they believe in the American dream. What we did today is we gave those families some promise that they can be in a system that allows them a fair opportunity to be the responsible homeowners that they want to be, so that they can keep that home and the shelter where they raise their children, that place where they expect to retire and to live with dignity. So again, I want to thank everyone here, and I think we all should feel very good that we have done something that was just the right thing to do. Thank you.
So now we have, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. I'm Ethan Hoff. I'm a grateful homeowner, and I'm thrilled with the decision today, and I want to especially thank Attorney General Harris for her follow-through. I also played by the rules, and my story is a little bit different, but I'm been asked to share the process that I ended up going through with my lender, Wells Fargo. I fell behind on my property taxes. I had $23,000 behind in Sacramento County property taxes. So I contacted my lender, and this is in August 2011, to see if I could get some help. I knew interest rates were at an all-time low, so by maybe lowering my interest rate, I could not have to pay the $23,000 outright, that it would be structured into my loan. They told me about a home modification program, HAMP, and so it sounded really good to me, and I started the process. And in doing so, they told me it would take 30 to 45 days. Well, it's now almost 11 months later, and I'm in a trial period. I'm hopeful that it's going to be a permanent modification soon. But what I ended up going through in the system is that I would end up calling Wells Fargo, and each time I would talk to a different person. I've talked to over 30 different individuals. Each time I would call, I would get a different opinion. I also was assigned a single point of contact. However, that person was never available. I may put in 10, 15 calls and not get a call back. So when I called, the person I spoke to, the representative, often said, well, you need to talk to your single point of contact. And I said, that's great, but I can't get a hold of him. He doesn't return my calls. I placed over 100 calls to Wells Fargo. I've sent over 29 faxes. This binder illustrates the information that I provided Wells Fargo. Also, in terms of the process, the information, the documentation had to be submitted in a timely fashion. So there was a catch-22. I submitted my pay warrants, I submitted my bank statements. So if I did that for March, I called in April and they said, well, we need to have current documentation. Your documents are from March. It's April now. You have to resubmit. That's why my binder is so thick. So I'm very hopeful that the new legislation will help struggling homeowners like me. I'm now on a positive note. Because of my complaints, I think with the Consumer Bureau and the Attorney General's office, I'm now in a trial period. I have been getting phone calls returned through Wells Fargo's complaint division. They have returned my calls, every one within 48 hours, and I'm in a trial period. And hopefully my modification will take place, and I will be able to keep my home. So anyway, thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you for reminding us that these laws are about real people and real lives, and the best of luck to you. Thank you, sir. Now I want to have a few words, and I know this is going on a while, but, you know, people who work day and night to develop a product that can pass in the way these measures passed here today deserve more than a minute or two at the microphone. And those are the members of the conference committee on both the Assembly and the Senate side. And I also invited Senator Leno, though not a member of the conference committee, was instrumental in the passage of this legislation. So one by one, we'll start with Senator Noreen Evans. Then we'll go Senate Assembly, and then we will be glad to take your questions. Senator Evans, great job.
Thank you. I think it's a proud day for Californians. This is an historic piece of legislation. It's the first of its kind in the nation. And it's appropriate that we passed it out of the legislature during the week that we celebrate July 4th, because July 4th is all about celebrating the American dream. And home ownership is a big part of the American dream. So when families are losing their homes, and over 1 million California families lost their homes between 2008 and 2011, those Californians are losing their slice of the California dream. So this is a piece of legislation that is a compromise. It's an important and significant piece that will help homeowners have a small tool in which to enforce their rights under the law and under the settlement agreement. We've been working very closely with the governor's office in crafting it, and I have every hope that he will sign the legislation and that Californians will be far more protected than they have been in the past. I also want to just thank everybody that's been involved here, but also the staff. The staff for all of the conferees worked literally day and night and on weekends to get to this compromise, and they've just done a fabulous job. And again, I think this will benefit all of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I echo that. I'm Assemblyman Mike King, the other co-chair. And I just want to say this is a historic day. If you look at the vote on the Assembly side, it was 54. 2/3 of our Assembly legislators voted for this bill, and I think on the Senate side by an equal margin. And one of the reasons that we had a conference committee is so that we could take testimony, over 20 hours of public testimony, gut-wrenching, heartwarming testimony. And what we discovered was that nobody benefits from foreclosures. Everybody wanted a solution. Banks lose $50,000 for every home that they foreclose on. Local government loses $20,000 for lost property taxes and extra police and fire protection. 500,000 Californians at risk for the last 5 years, every year. Every 13 seconds, someone in America loses their home. By the time that we've been here today, over 100 people will have lost their home in California. In California, 7 out of the top 10 cities lead the nation in foreclosures. Everybody wanted a solution, and I think we have reached it. And I want to close by thanking, of course, everyone that's here. Enjoyed really working with my co-chair, Noreen Evans. On the Assembly side, Mr. Fear did an extraordinary job, as well as the staff, and especially our Attorney General. I'd like to close by this thought. California was sinking on a Titanic of foreclosures, and your settlement of $18 billion allowed the first lifeboat to reach the shore. But there are many, many thousands more on that sinking lifeboat, which is that sinking ship, which is sinking our economy. And that's why we are empowering, through this legislation, lifeboats to carry those individuals from California from a point of danger to a point of safety. Thank you very much, and America, happy birthday. This is your finest hour and one of California's finest hour.
There you go, Mike. Good job, Mike.
Well, you've heard You've heard us mention our staffs a few times. We can't really mention them enough. And I know I'm going to embarrass them, but I would really like you to acknowledge the hard work that they've done. We're the negotiators. We are the ones that find the middle ground. But these people, we wouldn't be able to even arrive without their help. I want to introduce Eileen Newhall from my banking committee staff, Saskia, Kim, Anthony Williams. Anthony. This is the speakers, the pro tems, staff who we couldn't have done without it. Kamala Harris is Brian Nelson. And Michael Trancosa. Help me out, Marco. Mark LaForesta. Thank you so much. And everybody in this room should, if you get a chance, send them a thank you letter or go up and shake their hand, because they are just phenomenal. We could have done it without them. You know, this day brings relief for millions of California homeowners looking for a way to save what's for most of us the most important investment we'll ever make. That's our homes. And I'd like to thank Senator Steinberg for appointing me to the conference committee that crafted this legislation. It was a responsibility that I gladly accepted. In his infinite wisdom, Senator Steinberg placed me on the committee, knowing that I would help craft legislation that would not only shelter borrowers and the economy, but also survive a Senate floor vote. That's really where it all ends, right? And today we had 25 Senate votes and 53 Assembly votes, and 54, and that's something to be very, very proud of. I'm very proud to say that that's a mission accomplished. As a swing vote on the committee, I was seeking a balance between very legitimate interests that had been juxtaposed by this issue: the recovery of our economy, and then the rights of hundreds of thousands of homeowners hoping to hold on to their home, their American dream. On one hand, distressed homeowners and their advocates lobbied hard to punish lenders for abuses that were committed during the foreclosure crisis. But on the other hand, banks and others lobbied to minimize their liability and sought legislation that provided clear guidelines to follow. In the long run, what we've accomplished is, if you're a homeowner and you can afford to stay in your home, you now have a right to apply for a loan modification without any fear of receiving a foreclosure notice until there is a determination on whether or not you qualify for the loan or reasons for being denied. And on the other hand, if you're a lender and you've accepted an application for a loan modification, you are no longer in fear of getting sued as long as you provide an answer to the loan application and reasons why you've approved it or not approved it. So I think that strikes a perfect balance. I don't see any reason why anybody should be upset with that solution. With that, I want to thank again all of you for being here. Thank you, Conference Committee, for all your hard work. And I'm going to introduce Assembly Member Michael Fjord.
Ron, thanks. Thank you, Ron. So I want to make 2 points, but before I do, I want to build on the gratitude. Mark Farouk of Mr. Ng's banking staff, Kevin Baker from the Judiciary Committee, and 3 staff members from the Speaker of the Assembly's office, Arnie Soul, Frederica McGee, and Deborah Doty, also all deserve a special round of applause. Now, we stood just a couple or 3 months ago on this very stage answering questions from some skeptical reporters, and one in particular was, you have been grappling as a legislature with how to resolve the foreclosure crisis and really bring help to Californians for years. What makes this year different? Well, what a difference a few months makes. Here's what made this year different. What made this year different was a collective determination to make this the time when we finally delivered relief to homeowners across the state. A collective commitment to build on the promises that were made by the nation's leading servicers in the National Settlement Agreement. And by the way, as to that settlement and what distinguishes what we've done today from that national settlement was very monumental. But that national settlement did not provide for the ability of any individual homeowner to vindicate his or her rights, even if under the settlement those rights have been violated. Not in California, not as soon as Governor Brown signs this legislation. Because here we've established that with important responsibilities and duties come rights that one has the opportunity to pursue in court. Not frivolous rights that are affecting the basic merits of whether you should remain in your home or not. And I think that this legislation is going to be the catalyst for a change across the country, because now every resident of every state is going to demand of their elected officials the same protections that we're delivering to Californians today. So a great congratulations to all of us who've been participating in this. The Attorney General has been marvelous in this effort. And I think that this is a portent of things to come, because you're seeing a legislature that is building on success after success. And this is the beginning of what is going to be a series of achievements this year that will demonstrate that California's legislature and governor working together can solve our most intractable problems. Thanks very much.
I'll keep the last word short. I think if I've learned anything my now 10 years in Sacramento is that when I pick up an issue, or when any of us do as a legislator, that if it is of any major significance, it's probably not going to happen the first time around. Sometimes it doesn't happen the second, and sometimes it doesn't happen the third. The game changer in this instance was the success of Attorney General Kamala Harris. When I saw that settlement agreed upon, I thought, we now have a chance. Everything will change within the legislature, and the conference committee proved that to be true. But if there's one thank yet to be delivered, it's to all of the legal aid and advocacy groups who have kept this drumbeat going for 4 years now. Thank you. Yes. Just, there are thousands, tens of thousands, unfortunately hundreds of thousands of heartbreaking stories, each of them. But one day I remember very clearly was joining a group of over 1,200 community folks at a church in Oakland on a Saturday morning to describe how not only had they experienced themselves the heartbreak of an avoidable home foreclosure, but the collectivity of it, the totality of it had decimated neighborhood after neighborhood after. It was as if a bomb had gone off in these communities in Oakland. So much of it avoidable. The success that we've had today is with every intent to avoid any more bombs going off in communities across the state of California.
Thank you, Marty. A lot of people were thinking, I want to add, in addition to Anthony Williams and my staff, to thank Margie Estrada and Suzanne Werbinski for their years of work on this as well. Okay, thank you. And now we move on to ensure that room 1190 someday has air conditioning. Yeah. Glad to answer your questions. Attorney General.
The governor, can you describe the conversations that have taken place with the governor and how he feels about the bill?
I think, as always, they've been positive and constructive. The governor, of course, has to review the legislation and will render his own judgment, but we feel optimistic that he'll sign the legislation.
Sorry, it says here in the handout that there's 500,000 Californians who are currently in the foreclosure pipeline. What does the Homeowner Bill of Rights do for them?
You're right, that's what it says, and actually the most recent numbers we just received indicate that there are about 700,000 Californian homes that are in the foreclosure pipeline. It does a number of things. The issue of dual track is a system where the homeowner's in the process of that foreclosure. They have also received permission to pay a modified loan payment. They're in the process of paying the modified payment, and then they're foreclosed upon without any notice. This will end that. So for those 700,000 homeowners who are currently in the pipeline, they will now have a system that will offer them transparency and fairness. For those 700,000 homeowners who are currently in the pipeline, they will receive a single point of contact. What does that mean? It means that when they call the financial institution, they'll have the opportunity to speak with someone who is actually familiar with their case, is in possession of their paperwork, has the authority to make decisions. It means that that homeowner will then have the benefit of consistent and clear information so they can play by the rules and not be instead confused by what is currently a broken system. It benefits the financial institutions because, of course, everyone is better off when everyone is playing by the same set of rules with the same vocabulary based on the same set of facts and conversations. So those are some of the changes that will take place as to that number of folks who are in the process of foreclosure. As to the communities around them, part of the Homeowner Bill of Rights will address the issue of blight, which is a community issue. It's an issue for municipalities. I spent some time in Stockton, California with the police chief last year who was telling me in the first 6 months of the year he had over 200 criminal complaints associated with abandoned properties. Those complaints included rape and homicide. So it's a public safety issue. The statistics in terms of the fiscal and economic impact are that the estimates are that there is a municipal cost of about $35,000 associated with every home that is foreclosed upon. So you do the math, multiply that 700,000 by 35,000, and we're looking at what we believe to be a significant benefit fiscally to what we are doing by virtue of creating a system that will be fair, and in that process probably making sure that we slow down unlawful foreclosures. And then hasn't even begun to discuss the psychic benefit to a community. Since this started, over the last 5 years, the estimates are that as many as 1 million children have been associated with those homes that have been foreclosed upon. So up and down the state, and by the way, this is an issue that ranges from every one of the 58 counties in the state to varying degrees, but no one has gone untouched by this issue. And therefore, no one, I think, will go untouched by the benefit of this legislation.
You enforce it if banks don't comply?
So it'll take effect in January, and but I'll make a note based on recent experience on that point. The national foreclosure that we were a part of, the agreement was made, but not to take effect for almost half a year. What we saw were that the servicing institutions, knowing that it was going to happen, started to clean up their practices right away. So it is our belief that although not legally obligated to implement or institute the specific aspects of the California Homeowner Bill of Rights until January, that they actually will begin to put these better systems in place. In terms of the enforcement, I think Mike Fuhr spoke to that quite well. That's something that's very unique to the California Homeowner Bill of Rights. It's not only about giving rights to the homeowner in terms of improving the rules and instituting reforms. What this bill does is it also gives us an enforcement mechanism so that these are not simply aspirational goals, that they are in fact rules which, if broken, will face consequence and accountability.
What is that consequence? Is it a fine?
It may be a fine. So, for example, there was some discussion about if it's before the sale of the house, but after the notice of default, the homeowner, if they can show a material harm, can go to a court and get an injunction, basically enjoin the servicing institution from proceeding with the foreclosure. If it's post sale of the home, then again, if they can show that there is a harm and get through the door of the courthouse based on that threshold of showing that there is something material that is a harm, then they can actually sue for damages. So.
You mentioned 700,000 foreclosures in the pipeline, so that you don't spread like false hope. Clearly, not everyone who's being foreclosed upon is going to have a benefit. I mean, what types of homeowners I mean, there's certainly no requirement as a certain amount of percentage of the principal write down or anything, but realistically, who, in what circumstance in their life would stand to benefit once this law becomes the law?
The informed homeowner. And that's why your coverage of this today is very important. That's why the work that a lot of these community-based organizations are doing is very important. What we know is that the pathology that surrounds this issue is such that most of the homeowners that we're talking about, those homeowners who are responsible people who want to pay to stay in their homes, are under an incredible amount of pressure. The pressures of life that include the reality that they may be losing their home, they probably lost their job, there are an incredibly high number of divorces associated with these homes, depression, things of death, things of that nature. So what ends up happening is that the homeowners we're talking about tend to be really isolated because they feel very alone and they're just trying to hold it all together. That's where the community-based organizations kick in, because they're doing extensive outreach to get to these families, to let them know that if they reach out, that they're there to help. And by the way, they're there to help for free. Part of what we want to encourage by supporting the community-based organizations is encourage the homeowner to go to the HUD website and see where they can get HUD certified services to help them get through this process. Statistically, we know, and HUD recently published a study, over 70% of the homeowners who have a counselor through the process are more likely to keep their home than if they don't. So it makes a real difference to your point. The informed homeowner, the homeowner who has a counselor through this process, is much more likely to benefit from these rules than if they go it alone.
Plus, if I can add that one of the vital services that our district offices serve.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that we're
a good
able
point.
to do outreach on a very large, a district-wide scale.
That's right.
To all the people that live in our district. So we'll be not only having clinics and town halls and things like that, but we'll also be sending out literature by mail so that they'll know exactly what their rights are, what they can do, how to proceed forward, or to call our office. We're all going to have an advocate, someone in our office that'll be able to answer all their questions.
So you have to be at least applying for a loan modification to trigger everything in the bill, or all of the protections? Not all of them. Okay.
No, the dual tracking issue is one that pertains to people who are seeking a loan modification. A single point of contact pertains to anybody who is seeking to grapple with issues related to their loan.
Okay.
And, of course, the idea that the documents need to be substantially verified so that the foreclosure is working on the basis of documents that are legitimate, that pertains to any homeowner who's confronting foreclosure.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.